Howdy folks, Jeff here, Certified Master Technician, and today I want to show you what we got going on in the shop today. I don't normally do how-to videos, but I wanted to show you how these shocks work and how they're installed. We have the Bilstein 5100 series, which is an adjustable shock, so it's ride adjustable, height adjustable. We've got it out here. This is a really nice looking shock. This is nice, heavy, and if you'll notice right here, and if the camera can pick that up, we have little rings right here, and you move the ring to adjust this because the spring goes on here, and so we can actually adjust the height of the vehicle by moving the spring up. And so, like I said, I don't normally do how-tos, but I want to go ahead and show y'all how these are installed and the difference that it'll make on the ride. And so what we'll start with here is first we'll measure the original height. We haven't done anything on this truck yet, and as you can see there, it's just under 37. We have about 36 3/4. So that's the height that we're starting with. Now we're going to go ahead and raise this vehicle up, set the jacks, take the wheels off, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, what we've done is installed the ring right here on the highest notch, and then it comes with this adapter, and if you'll just look at it and make sure that you have it the right way, the little slot catches the ring, and we just slide it down over here. And now this is what's going to catch a part that we reuse off of the old strut. So we want to not just discard that, we want to keep on to that. Now we've got the wheel off of here, and so now here's the strut right here assembly that has to come out. And it's got some bolts up here on the top, and it's got some bolts down here on the bottom. But in order to get that out, we have to loosen the front suspension. And when we start loosening the front suspension, we have to remember there's lines right here. You have your wheel speed sensor, you have the line that goes to your air locker, and of course we have half shaft. And we want to be able to allow that stuff to move out of the way because we don't want to put any strain on anything, and we don't want to stretch anything, and we don't want to break anything. So first we remove this cap right here, and as you can see there's a nut up underneath here. We need to take that loose so that that half shaft is able to move out. And when we start removing the bolt up here for the knuckle and for the upper A-frame, well, we have the lines here, and what we want to do is take these lines loose here. So we have a couple bolts up here, and we just pull them out, and make sure that you have something to collect all of your bolts, that when you go to put all this back together, we're not missing some bolts. We take these lines loose here, and then as we see, when it starts going up here, some of these are pushed into these connectors, and we have a special tool that we can pop those loose, and we pop them loose up here on the upper A-frame, and then they're hooked on up here on the top on the strut mount. And so we want to take all those loose, and now as we get all those loose where this will start to move, we're going to go ahead and pull this one loose for the axle. And now I'll get the stuff and we'll start taking these loose and knock this loose, and I'll show you where we're at from there. Okay, as you can see, what we've done is taken the upper A-frame loose, and then we went ahead and took off the brake caliper right here, and I like to put a hanger on them. I like it to be hanging on us to be supported. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to move this one air line over on this side of it, and now we're ready to drop this suspension down. In order to do that, we've got the top part off, but now we need the lower part to go down. And so there's a sway bar in here, and the sway bar is actually holding that up. So what we're going to do is reach back up in here and take that sway bar bolt loose, and the suspension should start falling down. See, it gave us a little bit more room there. It takes the tension off there. And so now we're just going to push this down. We're going to grab the strut assembly here and just lift it on out of there. And as soon as I get it out, then we'll show you how we compress the spring. Alright, as you can see, we went ahead and took the outer tie rod loose so that we could have a little bit more movement in the lower A-frame. so that we could get some clearance and get this out. We also loosened the upper A-frame bolts just to be able to swing this without it putting pressure on there. Now we got the old one out, and as you can see, we marked this with some lines to mark where the spring matched on strut mount. And this has to go into a machine, or you have to have something that's going to compress this spring and hold it to get the new one out. You don't want to take this top center bolt loose until you have the spring secured, and you just squeeze it enough until this lower part becomes loose. Then you take that loose, drop the old strut out, we get the new one. We also had to knock the lower cap loose off of the old strut. You put it on the new strut, and then we put it back together. We bolt it all back down, and now we have it ready to go back in. So all we have to do now is raise this up, push this down, stick it back in there, and bolt it together. Okay folks, as you can see, we've got it all bolted back together. When you lift that strut assembly up in there, go ahead and get these bolts on the top started, and then kind of get this bottom part where it needs to go, but don't put the bolts in and tighten them until you run the axle back up in and make sure it's properly seated in here. Don't tighten it, but just get it into the slot, and then tighten those bottom bolts. Put your tie rod back on, be sure and tighten that. On the upper A-frame, it needs to be set straight, and then tighten it down, and then you're going to pull it back down into this knuckle here, and then tighten it up. And then make sure all your lines are run the right way. Make sure they're not binding. Go ahead and bolt them all back together. Double check all of that. Then go ahead and run your nut right here on this front axle. Put it in. And remember, we took a little cap off of there. We put our brakes back on. Make sure you get your brackets for the brakes tight. They're all back lined up. And then go ahead and still leave this sway bar bolt off, because remember, we have to do the other side, and this sway bar goes from one side to the other. So if we tighten this back down, it's going to be binding on the other side. So go ahead and leave that loose. That way we leave the tire off until we get the other side done. We get the other side done, then you bolt that sway bar back on, put your wheel back on, and then we're going to set it down and we'll measure and let y'all see the difference. Okay, as you can see, we've got the wheels back on. We've got it all lowered down. We wiggled it just a little to get it to settle. So if you want to take your from your standard shocks and go to the Bilstein, and that's adjustable, right adjustable, height adjustable. Let's see what difference it made. You can visibly tell it sits up higher, but here we go. Here's the tail of the tape, and we've got just about 39 1/4. And so we've got about a 2.5 inch lift on it. So folks, it really wasn't that hard. It didn't change a lot of the angles. If you're an experienced mechanic, you can do this in under 2 hours. We were recording it, took us a little bit longer. If you're a novice, don't quite know what you're doing, you got a buddy helping you, you're out in your garage, you can probably plan on about 3 or 4 hours. It's not a tough job. It can be done by the do-it-yourselfer. The only other thing I can suggest is after you get this done, go ahead and run it over and let them check the alignment on them, because we don't want to chew up some nice good tires. But otherwise, as always, I appreciate y'all watching.